Kirby 63 suggested that I make a top 5 best and worst Kirby abilities. And so, here I am with this countdown. This would have been out about a year ago, but when Kirby and the Rainbow Curse got announced, I thought it would be more fair to wait to make this list until after the game came out. Except it doesn't really matter since that game doesn't have any copy abilities. Here are some rules. For worst, I am not including the sleep ability because that's the point. It's supposed to be a joke ability. But I will still count abilities for uses in at least one game, but still adjust the fact that they're useful in some other games. And for best, I am not going to talk about the Ultra abilities from Return to Dreamland or the Hypernova from Triple Deluxe. And for both sides, I won't count the combined abilities from Kirby 64, Dreamland 2, and 3. And of course, you might disagree with me on these entries. Let's just start the show. The wing ability is actually pretty useful, unless you're talking about in Kirby's Air Ride. While Kirby's Air Ride makes great usage of the abilities in this game, the wing ability is made worse. The only differences that it makes are the fact that you can no longer charge your boost, and admittedly, it does increase your glide ability. Forget it. If you want to glide for longer periods of time, use the Shadow Star. Not this hunk of boostless feathers, though the gliding thing does keep it from being any worse. With the game Kirby Triple Deluxe, we were brought some new addicting abilities. We got the Circus ability, which lets you perform cool circus moves. We got the Archer ability, which lets you shoot arrows. The Bell ability, which lets you beat enemies in a rather interesting way. And we got my favorite of the bunch, the Beetle ability. Now, this may not sound all that cool, but with this, Kirby can slice enemies like this. Enemy kebab! Oh yeah! And even its floating animation can damage foes. I know the wing ability also does this, but the Beetle ability is so cool. Once I grab it, it'll be hard for me to want to put down. Well, unless you come across something that you need a different ability for, but you get the point. We all know about Kirby's signature ability, to swallow enemies and copy their powers. It's so iconic that we even got an ability called Copy. What's the difference? It's basically the same thing except you can inhale. Geez, filler much? Yes, it damages bosses just like pretty much every other ability. It can copy a Scorpion's ability, but that's its only real purpose. Everywhere else is pretty much unneeded. It may grant you the ability to copy abilities from many bosses before you beat them, but you're going to copy their ability after you kill them anyways, so there's really no point. Everyone loves the UFO ability. The UFO can either use a beam-like attack with it, or shoot a beam which can be powered up for a mega powerful attack. Taking command of a UFO feels so satisfying, and controlling Kirby feels like a breeze with this very powerful weapon, because all you do is just press the buttons on the analog stick, and you'll really feel like you're moving in the direction you want to go in. You lose it after you beat a level, but it's all worth it in the end to take control of the spaceship. The cutter ability was useful in every game except for Kirby 64. Want to know what it does? Instead of throwing an actual boomerang cutter, it has you throw half of yourself at the enemy. That may sound kind of cool, but this ability severely cripples you. This will greatly hinder your movement, and you can't even flutter anymore until it comes back. Why do this? Why not just throw normal cutter boomerangs like in the other Kirby games? Instead, we get Kirby throwing part of himself as a boomerang. Yeah, I think you understand where I'm coming from with this. If it was to prevent spamming, then all we needed was to only throw one at a time. Oh yeah, the mic ability. The mic is slightly weaker than the crash ability, but on the positive side, you use it 3 times instead of 1. Blasting enemies in the huge radius has never felt more satisfying. And showing 3 different outfits for Kirby. And like I said, it's slightly weaker than Crash, but against bosses, the total damage of all 3 blows does even more damage than the Crash ability. With all 3 of these combined, you can even take down some mini-bosses with ease before they can even touch you. definitely one of the most useful abilities ever, and it really rocks out loud. While it feels awesome using the sword in most Kirby games, in its first appearance, it set the standard for stupid. It was pretty much a short-ranged weapon with no other use other than melee combat. Other short-range moves had more usage to it. The sword is just incredibly weak, and by that, I mean worse than having no ability at all. What's also sad is that you're forced to use it against Meta Knight. Meta Knight's sword in Meta Nightmare feels much more convincing than this oversized stick. The only thing that keeps it from being worse is that it's useful in other games it appears in. Yeah, like I said, the sword was useless from the beginning, but it got better later on. The hammer, on the other hand, was awesome to begin with. This mega powerful mallet lets you smash the living heck out of your enemies and they won't know what hit them. It breaks the toughest of blocks and pounds those pesky stakes into the ground. It's one of the rare abilities that can be used underwater. So if it was awesome to begin with, then how could they make it better? By giving it even more tactics, such as the hammer flip. It takes about 3/4 of a second to charge, but deals mega damage when it does so. Yeah, it's no wonder King DDD carries you wandering around with him all the time. It is awesome. The copy ability stunk, but at least it was useful sometimes. The wing cutter and sword were only terrible in one game. The number 1 ability, on the other hand, has no use whatsoever and was never useful. That ability is the metal ability. Metal is easily the worst copy ability in the entire franchise. It completely takes all the fun of playing through a Kirby game. Oh, but it makes you invincible to enemy attacks. Well, let's not forget, enemy attacks aren't the only thing that Kirby needs to look out for. Pitfalls, walls that try to crush you, and the metal ability is useless against bosses since you can still take damage. I know that would make it broken, but is there anything to make the metal ability in any way useful against them? No! Because of how unbelievably slow it is, you're going to lose. Even when you're not facing off against the boss, it sucks all the fun out of playing a Kirby game. No pun intended. You may still be able to flutter infinitely with or without it, but just look at this. Does this look like fun to you? No. This ability is even more unnecessary than the sleep ability. At least the sleep ability can heal in some games, and that was a joke ability. An ability that's supposed to be useful is even more pathetic than an ability that's supposed to be terrible. It can be fun to use at times, but most of its uses were derived from the stone ability, which was much better because you walked normally with it. In my opinion, metal is the worst Kirby ability ever. I'm sorry to rip off your list, Quarter Guy, but I agree. The Smash ability is almost everything we love about Kirby. It blends some of his moves into one, lets him jab rapidly, just like the fighter ability. He uses the hammer's strength, the final cutter from his cutter ability, the stone ability, and he can flip in the air like he was using the sword, just like in Smash Brothers. He can use many different weapons at once with the Smash ability. With all these combined copy abilities into one to pay homage to the Smash Brothers, this ability would be considered more of an Easter egg than an actual ability, but it's just so good. These factors make this my favorite Kirby ability. I am Matt 57 II, and I liked Quarter Guy's Kirby abilities list, like it or not.